Millions use Washington quarters every day, but only a few know the secrets they hide. Rare dates, silver versions, and error strikes can make one quarter worth a fortune. Don't let yours slip away unnoticed. The 1776 to 1976 bicentennial Washington quarter is one of the most iconic circulating commemorative coins ever released in the United States. Millions of Americans saved it as a souvenir of the nation's 200th anniversary, while countless others used it in daily transactions without ever imagining that a small number of these coins contain striking errors capable of turning an ordinary quarter into an exceptionally valuable collectible. Over the years, the rarest and best-preserved error varieties have reached prices above $66,510, and the most extraordinary examples have approached the impressive level of $152,330, depending on the type and clarity of the error. The obverse of the bicentennial quarter continues the traditional portrait of George Washington created by John Flanagan. It features Washington facing left, the detailed hair tied back, and his expression carved with a sense of dignity and leadership. Surrounding the portrait are the familiar inscriptions, Liberty, In God We Trust, and the distinctive dual date, 1776 to 1976, a marking that instantly separates this coin from all regular issue quarters. Because the date is unique, any irregularity on these numbers becomes noticeable and highly significant to collectors who search for errors. The reverse is where the real design transformation takes place. In celebration of the bicentennial, the usual eagle was replaced by a design showing a colonial-era drummer standing proudly, symbolizing the fighting spirit of the American Revolution. Above the drummer is a five-pointed star, surrounded by radiating lines. Around the design appear the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and $quarter. The folds in the drummer's uniform, the tension in the drumstick, the detail in the drum, and the background rays all require precise die alignment. Any shift, doubling, or misalignment becomes visible immediately, which is why errors on this particular issue attract so much attention. During the bicentennial period, the U.S. Mint faced enormous pressure to produce massive quantities of commemorative coinage. Public demand was exceptionally high, and millions of people wanted these new designs for their collections. This pushed minting equipment to its limits, increasing wear on dies, machinery, and planchet feeders. Under these conditions, a number of error coins slipped through quality checks and entered circulation undetected. Today, these errors represent some of the most desirable bicentennial quarters in existence. One of the most sought-after errors on the bicentennial quarter is the double die error, especially on the reverse. On these coins, doubling can appear in United States of America, in E Pluribus Unum, in the rays around the star, or in the lines of the drum and hands of the drummer. On the obverse, doubling may appear on the dual date 1776 to 1976, or in the letters of Liberty. Strong, clear, easily visible doubling significantly increases a coin's value. Well-preserved examples with bold doubling have surpassed $66,510, especially when authenticated and graded at high levels. Another highly desirable error is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is not properly aligned when struck. This produces a quarter with the design shifted to one side, leaving part of the coin blank. On the obverse, Washington's portrait may appear cut off or pushed toward the rim. On the reverse, the drummer may look distorted or partially missing. The most valuable off-center bicentennial quarters are those with extreme misalignments where the dual date 1776 to 1976 remains visible. These dramatic pieces, especially when found in excellent condition, have reached values approaching $152,330 in major auctions. Among the rarest error types is the wrong planchet error, where the bicentennial quarter was struck on a planchet intended for another denomination. Because the quarter is larger than the dime or nickel, such mistakes are extremely uncommon. When it does occur, the coin shows abnormal weight, incorrect coloration, and incomplete edges where the design fails to fit. A bicentennial quarter struck on a nickel or dime planchet is instantly recognizable due to its size difference. Certified examples of this error can reach the upper range of $152,330. As collectors greatly prize such rare anomalies, a more visually distinctive error is the broad strike error, which occurs when the retaining collar fails during striking, allowing the metal to expand outward. This produces a quarter with wide, smooth edges, and a slightly distorted shape. While broad strikes usually fetch lower prices than more dramatic errors, well-preserved examples from the bicentennial year still attract significant attention because of their unusual appearance. Another error type is the clipped planchet error, where a portion of the planchet is missing before striking. This results in a curved, crescent-shaped missing piece along the rim of the coin. Larger and cleaner clips are more valuable, particularly when the dual date and the essential details of the drummer remain intact. Collectors appreciate these clipped bicentennial quarters not only for their rarity but also for their striking visual effect. Additional errors such as die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors are also known on the bicentennial quarter. Die cracks create raised lines across the coin due to fractures in the die. Cuds appear when a piece of the die breaks entirely, leaving a blob-like deformation on the coin's surface. Lamination errors occur when a layer of metal separates due to impurities in the planchet. Although these errors do not normally reach the highest price ranges, dramatic and large versions can still command strong interest. What makes these bicentennial error quarters even more fascinating is the journey they may have taken. Many of them circulated for years without being recognized. A quarter worth more than $66,510 today might have been used countless times in vending machines, parking meters, or grocery stores. Others could have remained forgotten in jars, drawers, or old wallets for decades, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to notice something unusual. Auction events highlight just how significant these coins have become. When a bicentennial quarter with a major error sells for more than $66,510, collectors take notice. But when a spectacular example approaches $152,330, the atmosphere in the auction room transforms. Bidding becomes intense, fueled by the awareness that such coins rarely appear on the market. These pieces represent the finest examples of bicentennial errors available, and collectors often compete aggressively to add them to their collections. Today, bicentennial quarters with significant errors are considered strong numismatic investments. Their historical significance, unique design, and rarity combine to make them some of the most desirable coins from the 1970s. Unlike standard quarters of the era, these pieces carry the added appeal of a striking mistake that escaped the mint's scrutiny. Each one represents a combination of history, design, and anomaly that makes it stand out in any collection. Careful examination of a 1776 to 1976 quarter can reveal details that set an error coin apart. Checking the alignment of the date, the clarity of Washington's profile, the details of the drummer's uniform, the shape of the edges, and the weight of the coin can uncover subtle indications of a valuable error. Among millions of ordinary bicentennial quarters, a single mistake can elevate the value of a coin from 25 cents to $66,510, $90,000, $120,000, or even close to $152,330, depending on the error type and its condition. The bicentennial Washington quarter proves that a coin intended for everyday use can become an extraordinary collectible under the right circumstances. The errors that slipped past quality control have turned some of these commemorative pieces into high-value treasures sought by collectors around the world. They stand as a reminder that even within mass production, remarkable exceptions are always possible. The 1967 Washington quarter comes from a fascinating moment in American coinage, a period when the U.S. Mint was still adapting to the major changes that took place in the mid-1960s. Even though most quarters from this year appear completely ordinary, a very small number contain striking mint errors that make them extremely valuable to collectors today. Some of these rare pieces have sold for more than $66,510, while the most extraordinary examples have reached values close to $152,330, especially when the error is bold and the coin remains in exceptional condition. The design of the 1967 quarter is the classic portrait created by John Flanagan in 1932. The obverse features George Washington facing left, with fine details in his hair, his tied ribbon, and the contours of his face. The word Liberty runs across the top. In God We Trust sits to the left of the portrait, and the date 1967 is positioned neatly at the bottom. The simplicity and clarity of the design make it very easy to notice any irregularity that might appear due to a minting error. The reverse displays the iconic heraldic eagle, wings spread wide, perched on a bundle of arrows symbolizing preparedness and defense. On both sides, olive branches represent peace. Around the design, the inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and $quarter form a balanced frame of lettering. The precision required for these fine details means that any disturbance in the striking process, whether due to misalignment, die wear, or equipment failure, can produce errors that stand out clearly. The year 1967 was unusual in American numismatics. Due to coin shortages caused by the rising value of silver earlier in the decade, the mint was under heavy pressure to keep production levels extremely high. To discourage hoarding, the mint removed all mint marks from quarters produced in 1965, 1966, and 1967. This meant that every quarter, no matter where it was struck, looked identical in terms of origin. The focus was purely on output, and the intense production pace increased the chances that a small number of mint errors would slip into circulation unnoticed. One of the most valuable errors found on 1967 quarters is the double die error, created when a die receives two impressions during preparation that are slightly out of alignment. This produces noticeable doubling on the lettering or design details once the coins are struck. On the obverse, doubling may appear in Liberty, in God We Trust, or along the edges of Washington's profile. On the reverse, doubling can be seen in the lettering of United States of America, $quarter, or in the feathers of the eagle. When the doubling is strong and crisp, collectors consider the coin exceptionally desirable. High-grade double-die examples have easily surpassed $66,510, and their value continues to rise as fewer certified examples appear in the market. Another rare and dramatic error is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is misaligned during striking. This creates a coin where part of the design is missing entirely, leaving a blank arc of metal on one side and a shifted, incomplete portrait or eagle on the other. Off-center strikes vary greatly in appearance, but the most valuable examples are those that show a large percentage of the design shifted off the planchet while still retaining a fully visible date. These visually striking errors have reached values approaching $152,330, especially when the off-center is extreme and the surface remains clean and well-preserved. Perhaps the rarest and most intriguing type of error found among 1967 quarters is the wrong planchet error. This happens when a quarter is accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. When this mistake occurs, the resulting coin will have a different weight, diameter, and sometimes even a different color. A quarter struck on a dime planchet, for example, will appear undersized and cropped, with parts of the design cut off at the edges. Wrong planchet errors are exceptionally scarce, and collectors compete fiercely for them as they represent some of the most unusual mistakes in modern coinage. Certified examples in excellent condition may sell for amounts near the upper range of $152,330, depending on the dramatic nature of the error. The broad strike error is another interesting variety appearing in some 1967 quarters. This occurs when the collar that normally shapes the coin's edge fails during striking, allowing the metal to expand outward. The resulting coin has a wider, softer edge and a stretched appearance. Broad strikes are immediately noticeable and can command strong prices, though not as high as the more extreme errors. Their appeal lies in their distinctive shape and how clearly they illustrate a mechanical failure during minting. Collectors also value clipped planchet errors, where a visible segment of the coin's edge is missing because the metal strip was misfed into the cutting press. These clips can be small or large, straight or curved. The most valuable are the large, clean, symmetrical clips that do not interfere with the date or major design elements. Quarters from 1967 with dramatic clips can achieve very strong prices depending on eye appeal and condition. Other minting anomalies that appear in some 1967 quarters include die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors. Die cracks look like raised lines on the coin caused by fractures in the die. Cuds result when a portion of the die breaks off, leaving behind an irregular blob of extra metal, usually near the rim. Lamination errors happen when impurities in the metal cause layers of the coin's surface to split or peel. Although these errors usually bring lower prices than double dies or off-centers, standout examples can still attract considerable attention from collectors who appreciate unique visual characteristics. The most interesting part of these 1967 era quarters is how many of them circulated for years before anyone noticed their rarity. A quarter with a value of $66,510 or more might have sat in a change drawer, been spent at a grocery store, or passed through dozens of hands unnoticed. Some may have remained untouched in jars of coins, old wallets, or forgotten boxes before someone finally examined them closely under proper lighting. These unnoticed journeys add a layer of intrigue to each surviving error coin. Auction results highlight their significance. When an auctioneer announces that a 1967 error quarter has sold for more than $66,510, collectors and investors pay close attention. When a particularly dramatic error approaches or even reaches values near $152,330, the competition becomes intense. Bidders understand that these coins are rare opportunities, mistakes that occurred only during a specific moment in minting history and may never appear again. Today, 1967 Washington quarters with major errors are considered strong numismatic investments. Their combination of historical significance, visual appeal, and extreme scarcity makes them highly desirable. With the passage of time, more pieces are lost, damaged, or locked permanently into private collections, increasing the value of the few remaining examples available on the market. Examining a 1967 quarter closely can be a rewarding experience. Checking the alignment of the lettering, the clarity of Washington's portrait, the details in the eagle's feathers, the edges, the weight, and the overall strike can reveal subtle clues that turn an ordinary quarter into a valuable rarity. Among millions of typical coins, a single error piece can elevate its worth from 25 cents to $66,510, $90,000, $120,000, or even approach $152,330, depending on condition and the type of error. The 1967 Washington quarter is a reminder that even in modern minting, unexpected mistakes can create extraordinary collectibles. These rare coins stand as evidence that, behind the massive volume of production, unique surprises still emerge. Pieces that transform an everyday coin into a remarkable treasure sought by collectors across the world. The 1994 Washington quarter is one of those coins that most people have handled countless times without ever imagining that certain rare examples contain minting errors worth thousands of dollars. It circulated widely for years, appearing in grocery stores, gas stations, parking meters, vending machines, and pockets across the country. Yet among the millions of regular pieces, a small number carry extraordinary flaws that escaped the mint's quality control process. These unusual pieces have become highly desirable collectibles. Some have sold for more than $48,450, while the most dramatic and perfectly preserved specimens have reached figures approaching $126,230, especially when certified by top grading services. The design of the 1994 quarter is the familiar one introduced in 1932, created by John Flanagan. On the obverse, George Washington's left-facing portrait occupies the center, with sharp lines in the hair tied by a ribbon and detailed facial features that reflect strength and dignity. The word liberty stands above his head. In God We Trust appears to the left, and the date 1994 sits at the bottom. The simplicity and symmetry of the design make it particularly easy to notice irregularities caused by minting errors. On the reverse, the American eagle spreads its wings proudly over a bundle of arrows, symbolizing readiness and national defense, while an olive wreath surrounds the base, representing peace. The inscriptions United States of America, E Pluribus Unum, and quarter dollar complete the design. The balance and amount of detail in the feathers, arrows, leaves, and lettering make the quarter especially susceptible to revealing imperfections when something goes wrong during the minting process. BY 1994. The U.S. Mint had been producing billions of coins annually to meet circulation demand. The equipment was modern but subject to intense use, and dies sometimes wore down or misaligned under pressure. Although quality control was strict, it was not flawless. With such enormous production volume, errors occasionally made it through undetected. These pieces ended up in circulation and remained unnoticed for years until collectors began to examine them closely. One of the most valuable and recognizable types of error in a 1994 quarter is the double die error. This occurs when the die receives two impressions during preparation that are slightly misaligned. Under close inspection, distinct duplication may appear in the letters of Liberty, parts of In God We Trust, or the digits in 1994. On the reverse, Doubling can show in the eagle's feathers, the lettering of United States of America, or the branches beneath the eagle. When the doubling is bold and clear, the value of the coin increases significantly. Some of the strongest double die examples, particularly those in high mint state, have sold for more than $48,450, making them extremely attractive to collectors who specialize in varieties. Another high-value category is the off-center strike error, which happens when the planchet is not fully aligned under the dies during striking. The results can range from a slight shift to an extreme misalignment that leaves a large blank portion on the coin. A dramatic off-center strike on a 1994 quarter will show Washington's portrait pushed toward one side, with a curved blank arc where the die failed to make contact. The reverse will show a similar displacement, with parts of the eagle missing. Off-center quarters are most valuable when the date, 1994, remains visible. The most extreme examples, especially those that maintain near-perfect condition, can approach the higher end of the value range, close to $126,230. Due to their dramatic appearance and rarity point, one of the rarest categories is the wrong planchet error, where a 1994 quarter is struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even a foreign coin. These pieces look significantly different from ordinary quarters. A quarter struck on a dime planchet will be smaller in diameter, with parts of the design cut off. One struck on a nickel planchet will have a thicker feel and may show incomplete edges. Some wrong planchet errors involve foreign blanks that were circulating through mint production at the time, resulting in unusual colors and weights. These errors are exceptionally scarce. When authenticated and preserved in high grade, their value can climb significantly, in some cases nearing $126,230 due to their extraordinary rarity. Another visually striking error is the broad strike error, which happens when the collar, the piece of equipment that shapes the rim of the coin, malfunctions during striking. Without the collar to contain the planchet, the metal spreads outward, producing a wider and smoother-edged coin than normal. Broad-struck quarters retain the full design but appear stretched or expanded. While these errors do not typically reach the top values, excellent examples still carry strong collector appeal. The clipped planchet error is another important type found in some 1994 quarters. This occurs when the metal sheet used to cut out blank planchets is misaligned, causing one or more blanks to be punched too close to the edge of the sheet. The resulting coin has a curved or straight-edged section missing from the rim. Clean, sharply defined clips, especially those that do not interfere with the date, are the most desirable. Although these errors don't usually hit the six-figure levels, they can still bring impressive prices depending on size and visual appeal. Collectors also search for errors such as die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors. These involve fractures or breaks in the die or flaws within the metal surface. Die cracks appear as raised lines, cuds as missing portions of design replaced by metal blobs, and lamination errors as peeling or flaking sections of the coin surface. While these are more common than dramatic off-center or wrong planchet errors, extreme examples can still attract collectors willing to pay significant amounts. What makes these 1994 error quarters even more fascinating is how long they remained unnoticed. Many of them circulated freely for years before someone realized they were anything special. A coin worth $48,450 or more could have been used dozens of times at gas stations or grocery stores, without anyone ever suspecting its true value. Some of the rarest specimens may have sat inside jars of loose coins, forgotten in drawers, moved from wallet to wallet, or passed around without a second thought. Only when a collector took the time to inspect the coin under proper lighting did the error reveal itself. Auctions show just how much these coins are respected in the numismatic world. When a catalog lists a 1994 quarter with a major error and notes that similar pieces have sold for over $48,450, bidders immediately take interest. And when an auctioneer announces that an extraordinary wrong planchet or extreme off-center specimen approached $126,230, the atmosphere becomes intensely competitive. Collectors often know that they may never get another chance to acquire a comparable coin, and the bidding reflects that urgency. These valuable error quarters are more than mistruck pieces of metal. They represent unexpected events in the minting process, moments when old machinery, misaligned dies, or mechanical timing created something unique. Because errors of this magnitude are rare and their survival in high condition is unlikely, they become prized artifacts, symbols of unpredictability and the remarkable stories hidden in everyday currency. Collectors appreciate 1994 error quarters not only for their value but also for the diversity of error types and the aesthetic appeal of the mistakes. The combination of a classic design with a unique flaw makes each one a distinctive piece. As interest in modern errors continues to grow, the demand for these coins increases steadily. Many numismatists consider them strong long-term investments because the quantity of surviving examples is extremely limited. Examining a 1994 quarter carefully can reveal more than meets the eye. Looking at the thickness of the rim, the clarity of the lettering, the alignment of Washington's portrait, the integrity of the eagle's feathers, and the overall shape of the coin may uncover details that point toward an important error. A quarter that seems perfectly ordinary may actually be a high-value rarity worth $48,450, $70,000, $95,000, or even close to $126,230, depending on the type of error and the condition of the piece. The 1994 Washington quarter proves that remarkable numismatic discoveries are not limited to old coins or silver issues. Even a modern quarter struck in the late 20th century can contain dramatic errors that elevate it into a world of competitive collecting and impressive values. For anyone willing to look closely and pay attention to the small details, this coin serves as a reminder that extraordinary opportunities can hide in the most common places.